1947 due to partition. He was elected to the Constituent Assembly in April 1948 as a member of Akali Dal. In 1952, Sardar Hukam Singh was elected to the first Lok Sabha. His name was placed in the panel of chairmen by the then Speaker G.V. Mavalankar. He impressed the members by the way he conducted the proceedings of the House. On 20th March 1956, he was unanimously elected the Deputy Speaker. In 1962, he returned to Lok Sabha for the third time. This time, he was elected on a Congress ticket from the Patiala parliamentary constituency. His tenure as Deputy Speaker had proved that he was the right choice and was unanimously elected to the office of the Speaker. As Speaker, he was convinced about the rules and conventions in ensuring the smooth functioning of the House. He also tried to dispose of all the colleague attention notices on the day on which they were tabled. Sardar Hukam Singh led Indian parliamentary delegations to various countries. After the office of the Speaker, his new innings started as the Governor of Rajasthan. As Governor, he won widespread acclaim for upholding the high tradition of the office. A multifaceted personality, Hukam Singh was a sportsman, educationist and writer. In 1967, he was awarded honorary degree of LLD by the Punjab University. He passed away on 27th May 1983 at the age of 88.
बच्चे की ग्रोथ नॉर्मल है।
अगर लड़की हो तो एबॉर्शन।
देखिए ये गैर कानूनी है। आज लड़कियां किसी से कम नहीं। डॉक्टर, IAS, पॉलिटिक्स में, स्पोर्ट्स में सब जगह लड़कियां पहुंच रही हैं। सन 2001 में 6 वर्ष तक की आयु के प्रति 1000 लड़कों की तुलना में लड़कियों की संख्या 927 से घटकर सन 2011 तक 914 रह गई है।
बेटी होगी तो घी के दिए जलाऊंगा।
से ही शान, मिट्टी से ही पहचान, तो बनिए हिस्सा नेशनल पॉपुलेशन रजिस्टर का। कैंप्स शुरू हो चुके हैं। राष्ट्रीय जनसंख्या रजिस्टर, मेरी पहचान, मेरा अभिमान।
हाँ? हाँ? आप कुछ भूल रही हो। क्या भूल रही हो? आपने नल नहीं बंद किया। उफ। अरे ध्रुव।
क्या दीदी?
तुम कुछ भूल गए।
क्या दीदी?
तुमने जाने से पहले लाइट नहीं ऑफ की।
उतना ही इस्तेमाल करें जितने की आवश्यकता है। आने वाली पीढ़ी को उनकी सुविधाओं से वंचित न करें।
जागो गाग जागो, तेरे देश की मिट्टी तुझे पुकारे, भारत का वासी है तू, बात ये गर्व से बतला रे। ओ जुड़ जाए,
मिट्टी से ही शान, मिट्टी से ही पहचान, तो बनिए हिस्सा नेशनल पॉपुलेशन रजिस्टर का। कैंप्स शुरू हो चुके हैं। राष्ट्रीय जनसंख्या रजिस्टर, मेरी पहचान, मेरा अभिमान।
Welcome back. You're watching Agenda. Another important question listed in the question hour today is on the number of research projects undertaken by Indian Council of Medical Research, and are we investing in innovation and scientific technologies? Coming back to you, Mr. Panda, do you think that the government is investing in science and technology? Because at this stage, the scientists don't really want to stay back in India. They don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the facilities. They feel it is better to go out, and that's when we are facing brain drain. The government is in fact launching schemes like the Inspire Fellowship and Ramanujan Fellowships to bring them back, but do you still feel that the infrastructure much needs to be done?
I think the government has and the country as a whole has a mixed track record. I think in certain areas we've made some progress, but in many areas I think we have low-hanging fruit that we are not grabbing. We need many more fellowships, we need many more world-class institutes that do research. That is not happening enough. And apart from the government directly doing things, government also needs to incentivize others. There are pharmaceutical companies that ought to be doing much more primary research in India, which is not yet happening. So we need to incentivize all kinds of things. One of the ways we harm ourselves is that we still have antiquated rules and laws of 40, 50 years old, which prevents foreign scholars from coming to India. Just like we want non-resident Indians to come here, there are many world-class scientists who are not Indian but want to come and work in India, and we should give them the opportunity. The countries that have developed the most on science and technology, they have always had a very healthy mix of their own homegrown talent.
And also, are we motivating our students to develop interest in pure sciences, because many of these students today are not interested in, and look at the salaries which we are giving to junior research fellows, senior research fellows.
Why should students be interested if the career prospects are poor? Students will obviously look at those lines of education which will give them jobs, which will give them a career path. Since we have not shown that India is one of the world's best places to do research, one of the best places for scientifically qualified young men and women, that's one of the reasons that it doesn't happen. So we need to take many more steps.
Right, Mr. Asi, you'd like to respond on this. The government, just by introducing few fellowships cannot really bring back scientists from abroad and in India. Do you also feel there's a possibility of having tie-ups with big universities abroad to boost research?
There is a tie-ups, and government recognizing this importance, planning commission allocated for research and learning about 10,029 crores has been allocated in the 12th plan. And as you said it, this fellowships and other, if you look at last 7 years, 500 scientists have returned to India, only 6 of them have gone back. So there is need for this high-end research to be taken place here. We claim that India is a world capital of pharmaceutical and industry. A lot of pharmaceutical engineers and scientists are coming back to India. We have world premier institutions like IITs and other institutions. So this is, government is giving an utmost priority, and the 12th plan, as I said it, funds have been allocated to have those facilities, and as Mr. Panda said it, how will they come back to the country unless they have a job opportunities? And I think now we are comparative to paying capacity to compare to any world premier
people who work in this in the research field often complain that they don't really have what you call the required infrastructure facilities. Someone who's working in the area of brain research would say that many of these brain research centers which we have in Delhi and many parts of the country don't really have the facilities which they would actually find in many in countries abroad.
No, there is some gap in the facility, but nowadays we are developing, and like in Nivans in Bangalore, they are doing a lot of good jobs, good work, and their works are recognized everywhere. They are, as you know, one of the epilepsy. So in Nivans is one of the pioneering institute where they have evolved the surgery for epilepsy. So in AIMS also. So there are a lot of things in India we are doing, but the problem is that how should we attract our talents? Because number one, nowadays we are giving a value more to the money. Whether one can earn more money, that we should also give them recognition. Nowadays the society is not giving recognition if you don't have much money. So this sort of mindset, I came from this medical background, and I know why. You can see that there are a lot of crisis in number of manpower in medical education. There are no teachers. Why? Because if the teachers, they will not earn so much of money like a private practitioner.
Commitment to come back.
That
like
commitment.
Mr. Panda, myself,
so
we studied in abroad and we came back.
Imbibe this
Many of
value.
our doctors who get government to support education, spending lakhs of rupees on each medical doctor.
You say commitments to come back, but what incentives you are giving them, what kind of facilities, Dr. Saha, what facilities you are giving them, that also how many patents we have, how many publications we have, on an yearly basis, how much the government is investing in research and development, less than 0.8% of GDP. That says a lot about also if it is our priority or it isn't our priority.
It's not only about money. It's not only about money. Let me point something out. We have to change the systems and processes. I am aware, I have personally interacted with at least half a dozen scientists who have come back from abroad and have either gone back or are extremely frustrated here because they don't have the independence that they are used to in world-class institutes. You still have bureaucratic interference. Decision making takes months and sometimes years, something which should take a few days, maximum a week or two. Unless we actually devolve the authority, both financial authority as well as administrative authority, to give true independence at these institutions. They'll never be world class. So of course we need to give more money. 10,000 crores is not enough for a 5-year plan for a country of India's size. We need to do much more. But more than money, we need to actually change the systems, free them from this kind of bureaucratic and governmental control.
Now, the bill, there's also a bill which the government has introduced, the Universities for Research and Innovation Bill 2012 in Parliament. Do you think it is a step forward, Mr. Panda?
I think it has many things to commend it. One of the problems we have is that because the government took a back seat for several decades, higher education in India has been overtaken by private institutions.
Right.
And the problem with that is most of these private institutions are doing it for profit, although not legitimately. They're not allowed to do it legitimately for profit. And this is a model that has never been tried anywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world, higher education is not done for profit. It is either done by government or it is done by private philanthropy. We have done very little private philanthropic universities and research projects and all that. You can maybe do a bachelor's degree on a for-profit basis because you are teaching existing knowledge. But when you go into masters and PhDs and research, it will not be done for profit. It has to be with philanthropy. Now, one of the questions you asked a little bit earlier is, are we providing the right platform so that world-class institutes come up? One of the ways for that is for well-known universities abroad to come here and to set up campuses here or to have joint ventures here. Some have happened, but let's face it, let's be very frank. There has been political opposition to it because there are vested interests in higher education among the political class. And until we address that blunt issue, we are going to have a problem of really providing full access.
Actually, I would like to respond to that vested interest of political parties in higher education.
I agree with Mr. Panda. That's a fact. That's a fact. Cutting across the politicians, setting up their own institutions for profit.
Yes.
Let us take an example. Let us take an example. There is a bill pending in Parliament, and although I'm in the opposition, I will say I've been supporting it. It's the accreditation bill.
Right.
Because you have lots of private institutions. Some of them are excellent, some of them are average, and many are quite terrible. Students are often duped because they see full-page ads in papers and they think these institutes have some standing. They turn out that many of those institutes don't have standing. Non-academic people are running it like a cheap business. Accreditation is important, but it is getting stalled in Parliament again and again. We need to have that. There are some genuine concerns in that bill. For example, how do you treat state and central universities? Perhaps you can have some exceptions for them. But certainly without a standardized accreditation, we cannot have high quality higher education.
Quickly your comment, Mr. Yakshi, on this boom of private colleges, because on one side we're talking about boosting good medical research, on the other side we have students who are getting admission in colleges on 100% management quota. So what kind of doctors we are making?
That's exactly the problem is, as Mr. Panda pointed out, nowhere in the world, this is the best business is setting up an educational institutions. And what do you expect when you're paying for this lakhs of rupees and getting becoming graduating and not willing to
serve? So what's the responsibility of the government here as far as regulation and monitoring is concerned?
Government has now taken up initiation to increase the medical seats in government colleges. And not only allowing, we need to have a linkage between the industry and the research institutions. Then only the quality research will take place.
Dr. Sabha,
the government is allowed and setting up aims like institutions across the country. Premier institutions is coming up, and now we are through the NHRM, we are encouraging the government hospitals to have institutional deliveries to distribute. If you see a day for yesterday, Mr. Azad inaugurated program.
Right, Dr. Sabha, quickly your comment, then I have to take this.
Regarding this, there are I'm talking about the medical colleges because we are mostly concerned in the medical research, So there are private medical college, even in some government institute also, they are very substandard. But we have no accreditation, as Mr. Panda is telling. The foreign medical graduates, while they come back, they have to go through a screening test. But for medical student passing from Indian college, there is no such test. And in every country, take up US or China or Japan, they have to, after passing MBBS, you have to go through the licensing examination.
Right.
So we should introduce licensing examination. Otherwise, I know many private colleges where teachers go once
and these are rigorous
month
exams,
or something like that.
I want to make a quick point. I don't think we should get digressed by private versus government.
No, not
you have substandard government colleges and you also have excellent private colleges.
Yes.
Most of the world's best institutions are not government. They're private, but they're run by philanthropy. And like was being pointed out, they have proper tests for both the admission as well as for licensing. So these are, and this is one area where I don't agree with recent judicial activism, because the courts have overturned a standard nationwide test.
Yeah.
This is one area where there has been.
And much needs to be done also from the government side as far as checking these most of these private institutes which
controls of the judgment.
Yeah,
their own
okay.
judiciary collection.
It's now time for me to take a short break. In our final segment, we'll talk about the economy. Stay tuned.
Are men from Mars?
And women from Venus?
Who is the better half?
Who takes the decisions?
Who is responsible?
Who is demanding?
Who is submissive?
Who is independent?
Can men and women ever find common ground? To find out, watch Gender Discourse. Every Thursday, 4 p.m. only on Lok Sabha Television.
तू इस वक्त क्या हुआ?
उन्होंने मुझे बहुत पीटा माँ। माँ, मैं किसी तरह जान बचाकर आ गई।
महिलाओं पर किसी भी प्रकार की घरेलू हिंसा कानूनी अपराध है।
अपनी सुरक्षा के लिए मुझे क्या करना चाहिए? प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ विमेन फ्रॉम डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस एक्ट 2005 के अनुसार महिलाओं पर शारीरिक और मानसिक उत्पीड़न कानूनी अपराध है। पीड़ित महिला नजदीकी पुलिस स्टेशन पर संपर्क कर सकती है। कहाँ जा रही है बेटी? मैं चुपचाप बैठी अपने पति के सुन नहीं जाऊंगी।
फिक्र मत करो बेटी,
हम तुम्हारे साथ हैं।
घरेलू हिंसा के खिलाफ आवाज उठाएं। कानून और समाज आपके साथ है।
Welcome back. You are watching Agenda. In our final segment, we'll talk about the economy. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh is expected to make a statement in both the houses today on economy, on the situation, on the state of economy. Coming back to you, Mr. Yaksky, we heard Prime Minister's intervention yesterday when he said that it's the international factors which are affecting the Indian economy, though the leader of the opposition in Rajya Sabha said that there are domestic factors, and now we also have a problem of tensions in Syria. Where are we headed? We are seeing the rupee falling.
So rupee falling against dollar is not happen only with India. If you look at the Times of India data, various other countries also, Brazil to Singapore to all other countries also, the dollar, the value of their own currency has been fallen. So this is international. We can't. There is international impact is there on rupee falling, but there's nothing to hide from the government side. Honorable Prime Minister going to make a statement today at 12 o'clock. Explaining the current situation. Is we are passing through a most difficult situation. In spite of world economic meltdown, India did remarkably well.
Now we have the outgoing governor
those
of
are not
RBI.
in our control. As I said it, like if US going war against Syria, it's not in our control.
No, but Mr. Actually, we have the outgoing governor of RBI, Mr. D. Subbarao, who has said that government is to blame for rupees fall, and he said it's because of the loose fiscal policy of the government and because of the structural factors between 2009 and 2012 which has brought us here.
What he has done as a RBI governor, how can you suddenly blame like completely on the government? He has a responsibility to take it as RBI governor.
No, but what was the finance ministry doing? The gap between the fiscal policy and the monetary policy on one side, you're boosting growth, on the other side talking about inflation.
Finance minister extensively replied on the economic situation and steps have taken by the government in the Lok Sabha.
So are you saying they are still much in control of the situation and rupee is not going to touch 70?
Very much. As I'm very optimistic, not only optimistic, but there's nothing to get panic at this point.
Nothing to get panic. Okay. Final comments. I'll start with you, Mr. Panda. Where are we headed?
Well, this is one area in which I completely disagree with my good friend Madhu Yaski. Look, let's look at the last few years where our economy has been going from bad to worse to worst. And this government has been, this Prime Minister has been in charge, although you can say that the FM may have changed. At various times they have blamed various different people. You know, a few years ago when the US economy was in crisis, they said it is because of that the Indian economy has been dragged down. Now recently the US economy is doing well, and they have been blaming the Indian collapse also on the growth of the US economy, saying the funds are going away from here to there. At other times they have blamed an active judiciary. Sometimes they have blamed the media for hyping it up. Sometimes they have blamed coalition, not recognizing that there has not been single party rule in this country for nearly 25 years. You know, at some point they have to acknowledge that they have been in charge, they have been in the driver's seat for last 9 years. They have to acknowledge their mistakes. And because of the loose fiscal policy, as the former governor of the Reserve Bank pointed out, because of the high fiscal deficit, it has been predicted for years. Economists and newspapers have been predicting, media has been predicting for years that this is leading to a crisis, and those predictions have turned out to be true. This is common sense and common knowledge. But the worst is yet to come, unfortunately, because the rupee is now approaching 70. What does that do to our fuel bill? Most of our petrol, diesel, etc. is imported, and the bill is going to come due over the next few weeks, next few months. So these costs are going to go up. As they go up, they have a vicious spiraling effect, which means the rupee will further slide. So I'm afraid I don't agree with the government's sanguine viewpoint that they are in control. They found a new excuse, which is Syria. The Syrian crisis will have some impact. But the point is, nobody forced this government to make many of these completely wrong fiscal and
then you also
decisions.
have the food security bill, which is being seen as a game changer bill for the UPA and its implementation.
On the one hand, they cannot talk about fiscal conservatism and then increase expenditure and increase the deficit. You know, let me tell you something. Over the last few weeks, the government has taken some decisions on FDI. They have relaxed and they have allowed FDI to come in so that the rupee will be shored up. Now, these were on the table for last 7-8 years.
True.
Why were they not taken? It's not that they didn't know. They had competent finance ministers.
Right. So, Dr. Sabha, okay, your comments on one side, we're talking about fiscal discipline. On the other side, we also have challenges of current account deficit. On the other side, you have populist measures like what you call a game changer bill, a food security bill. The government hasn't really understood the fact that it is now in a severe crisis and it has to take this challenge. Cannot deny any longer.
No, we cannot deny that we are in a severe challenge, and government should take proper policy. During the last crisis, because India has a large reserve, now we are disinvesting everything. All the public sectors we are trying to disinvest. I think this is the main crisis. Instead of we are disinvesting the public sectors into private property.
Okay, Mr. Yakshi, final comments from you. Will we hear anything new from the Prime Minister today?
Yes, please wait for an hour. And,
okay, and as far as this whole challenge of food security bill and the economic burden of the food security bill.
When the economy doing good, the opposition never gave it a credit to the government. They said like, oh, private entrepreneurship is boosting the economy. When something is going tough, then they blame the government policy.
But why is the government always in a denial mode? Don't you think it's the responsibility of the government to accept what really went wrong between 2009? Because we saw the government going in a fast forward mode, and when we said that September was the month of reform, so many reforms coming in, the government also must learn to accept.
When the economy was booming, that time nobody was ready to even to get ready to Honorable Prime Minister, when the whole world is looking at him as the best economist. So now with the tough situation, now they're coming up saying, oh, this decision was bad at that time.
But we have been fighting inflation. The tough situation has remained for a long time. Thank you very much, Mr. Yakshi, Dr. Saha and Mr. Panda for joining us in this program. And it's now time for us to show you what all is coming up in Lok Sabha today. The questions listed for the question hour today are related to the Ministries of Finance, Health and Family Welfare, Mines, New and Renewable Energy, Panchayati Raj, Petroleum and Natural Gas, Tourism, Tribal Affairs, Women and Child Development. Following the question hour, important papers will be laid on the table of the House. The long-pending Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Bill was passed by the Lok Sabha yesterday night. The bill will replace the archaic Act of 1894. It proposes compensation that is up to 4 times the market value in rural areas and 2 times the market value in urban areas. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh will make a statement on the economic crisis brought out by rupee fall in both houses of parliament today. A bill to amend the RTI Act aimed at giving immunity to political parties from providing information under the transparency law is slated to come up for discussion in Lok Sabha today. The much-awaited pension reform bill is listed as a legislative business in the Lok Sabha today. The pension watchdog, PFRDA, is currently an interim body. The bill will give it a statutory status. A bill that seeks to prohibit manual scavenging, rehabilitate those engaged in such inhuman employment and impose stringent measures to stop such practices is expected to be passed in the Lok Sabha today. Lok Sabha can also pass the Street Vendors Protection of Livelihood and Regulation of Street Vending Bill today. The bill would protect the livelihood, dignity and rights of street vendors. The bill approved by the Union Cabinet states that at least 2.5% of a city's population would be allocated vending zones and it would be mandatory to form town and zonal vending committee in every city, with the committee having 40% representation of street vendors. Under Rule 193, Sushma Swaraj and Vasudev Acharya are expected to raise a discussion on the measures taken for relief and reconstruction in the wake of natural disaster in Uttarakhand. And that's all we have for you in this edition of Agenda. And we now take you straight to Lok Sabha for live proceedings. Thank you for watching.